If you're a Canadian and you're looking to buy 100 plus unit in Austin, Texas, then this is the episode for you. I am your host, Diana Lizarazo, and our guest speaker is Zorya Belanger. Now, before we get started, I want to share some exciting news with you. We have a social networking platform for the real estate investing industry. So if you are a real estate investor, if you're a mentor, or you're a professional, so those that service the real estate investors, then this is the platform for you. It's called realestateinvestorfam.com. There, you can be around people that are supporting you, people that are sharing similar ideas, helping you get ideas, helping you solve problems, and being around like-minded people. So get onto the platform, create it. It's free to join. You'll have a lot of fun, meet amazing people like Zorya on there, and it will just be awesome to have you there. Now, back to the show. On Behind the Scenes, our guest speakers are here to share their stories with you. They will be going behind the scenes on projects that they're either currently working on or have worked on in the past. And we'll get to hear about the problems they've encountered, how they solved them, and if it was something new, what they would do differently next time. So if you guys are ready to bring on Zorya, let's send her some thumbs up, let's send her some hearts, and let's get her on the stage. Instagram's doing these days with not having to wait. Oh, it's really good. Hey,
Hi.
how are you? Happy New Year.
Here. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, it's so nice to have you on. It's been a
You too.
while since we last spoke. And like that, I thought it'd be great. It'll be fun to chat about your project that's ongoing and to hear from your experience. So before we get started with that, though, let's just give the audience a little information about you. Like, what is your real estate strategies? How long have you been in it? Anything you'd like to share about yourself?
Sure. Some background about me. My husband Patrick and I started investing in real estate in 2013 with our first few properties in Edmonton, got into joint ventures, single family homes. And then we really dove into multifamily in 2019. And then we're able really to double our portfolio every year by doing so. So we have now 35 doors that we purchased in Edmonton and the surrounding area. And and then about, well, the lead up to it was a little bit longer, but we purchased with partners 144 units then in Houston 18 months ago in June 2023. And yeah, that all of my kind of background in the multifamily purchasing that I was doing here in Edmonton kind of led me to be able to contribute in a lot of ways to the project down there. And that's been my primary focus this last 18 months. And happy to be here to share more about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it'll be exciting. Lots of viewers will love to hear your experience because lots of people are even thinking about going out to other places. How do you even do that as a Canadian or what's out there even is it worth it? Like everything, right? So it'd be nice to hear just your experiences. And I'll probably link below because we had already a conversation about this project. So it'll be nice to get, because like that, these bigger projects, it's nice to get like status updates. Because I'm sure the stuff that happened in the beginning are probably already gone out of your mind because now you're dealing with more current
Yeah.
problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, this one was like basically a massive burr project. And so the goal was we only got a 2-year bridge loan, interest only. And so the goal was to refinance it. And now we're getting basically to the refinance stage. So it's like once we get the refinance done, it'll be complete, that part of it. But we're now getting indications of what the value is now. So we're there. We're much more complete than we were probably a year ago when we spoke.
Yeah. Okay, so now so you guys are so you're saying that I guess right now are then all the renovations are they done now at this
Yeah.
point and you're getting to the finance so you're already in the finance phase?
Yeah, we're basically getting quotes from different lenders, brokers, and just just looking at our options right now and seeing what's going to be the best and what terms we want or what we can get. So yeah, the renovations are done. They were mostly done back in August when we had basically a ribbon cutting ceremony with the city of Pasadena, because it's technically just outside of Houston and kind of one of the suburb cities. And so that was when everything was done. I guess I'll start from the beginning of we purchased this at about $11.1 million, which works out to about 77,000 a door. It's like a 1984 build. It was previously part of some of the units were renovated. Probably about 50 of them were renovated prior to, but the previous owner owned it for about 5 years, which is pretty typical. They renovated those 50 at the beginning, and even by the time we took possession, like those were a little bit dated as well. Some of them needed to be repaired. And then we ended up renovating basically the rest, and some that were just so badly damaged. So we renovated 96 of the interior units and spent about $500,000 also on the exterior, like repainted the whole thing. And maybe I can share pictures before and after later or somehow, because that's the most impressive to see the before and after. Completely repainted the outside because it was so gray and dark and the brick was so ugly. But we repainted the brick like this cyberspace grayish blue color, and like so much better. And then the interiors are just look brand new. So we were just really lucky. We worked with a really good GC, which was like really key in this whole success of this project. And so we put about $2 million into the renovations, and
And
so
was
all
that
in we're
the expected amount? Like, did you budget that, or did you go over budget, or you under budget? Like, how was that? Like the estimate? Like, did it go as expected, or what happened?
um yeah, it was technically over budget, but we added more things to the scope than was initially budgeted by our initial underwriting. Which was fine because we had the capital to do that. And if we would have made a bigger budget, the way it worked with the lender was we had to give them the entire amount up front. So we had to like have the entire amount for the renovations. We had to give it to the lender, and then they would slowly give it back to us as we did the work.
Oh, really? Oh,
So
that's
it was a
interesting.
huge expense. So looking back, maybe we would have even just had a lower budget for them, but internally had a bigger
Bigger
budget, but
budget.
we could do it for less, and so that we don't have to give so much of it up front. And then
That's
because as
interesting.
we did it,
Why
they
did they
basically
do
paid.
that?
What's that?
I was saying, why did they, like, is that standard that you have to do that, or is that something just happens in the US?
Yeah, I think it's pretty common in the US. Probably not, maybe not as common here, but there they want to make sure that you have the money to do the renovations and to then get the value up so that you can get out of this interest only loan. So that's their insurance that
But
you're gonna
they
do it.
take the money from you.
But they take the money, and then but luckily we worked it out with our contractor, and like when he would basically provide us a big invoice, the lender would pay the invoice.
Mhm.
They would keep
That's
paying it. So it's like they
interesting.
took the full amount, put it in a reserve account, and then we
Mhm.
used it up as we went. But it got tricky like near the end where they wouldn't release the last bit of funds, like the last 200,000, until we were fully complete. So it was a bit of a cash flow. It was pretty tight. We had to finish basically with our own money, and then we'd get reimbursed that last bit. But yeah, and as far as the scope, yeah, we initially didn't have like the leasing office renovation or the laundry room budgeted for. But yeah, we ended up still doing that work, and which was it was needed, and I'm glad we did, because the laundry room alone, um, we actually we got rid of all the machines that were there. They were leased, so we weren't
Mhm.
getting any of the income. But we got rid of like half the machines because they weren't needed, and we bought our own. And I totally renovated their room, and now put this like uh, it's called pay range system on it, so that we get the funds directly. And now we're getting like 1,200 a month in just laundry fees. So we do that
Mhm.
over cap, that's quite a lot of value, that just that one laundry room. So it was definitely worth an extra few thousand to renovate that.
Mhm. Oh, so that was, I guess, the decision for the laundry room. Was it just that was it too expensive for leasing? Or was it just you realized, you'd make more money if you renovated it and just got and just was receiving the money directly?
Well, we weren't making any money on that space. Like, it was a laundry room, but the machines were rented, and like, so the provider took all the profit, and they were supposed to be a profit share, but because there was so little profit, we never got any of it. And so, yeah, it's pretty hard to get out of contracts like that, but we were able to. And because they were not upholding their end of the deal. And so, yeah, so we just got our own machines, and now
Mhm.
it actually is a profit center. So it's almost like adding an extra unit, because it's basically going for the same price as our one bedrooms, actually a little bit more.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's amazing that, like you said, because sometimes I feel like, especially in the US, I feel like those contracts are usually quite ironclad, that they, like you said, they're hard to get
Mm-hmm.
out of. So that's great that you're able to get out of it and find those opportunities to even add
Mm-hmm.
more cash flow.
Yeah, so that
That-
was like the whole what we tried to do, but say increase the value of the property by increasing the income that it's producing. And so the major part of it was the 96 renovated units. We increased the rent on average about $100 for the one bedrooms, and over $200, about 220 for the two bedrooms, because we had a lot less of them and they're just a lot more desirable. They're actually two bed, two bath units.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the majority of like the value lift in the property was the increase in rent, but we also added a lot, about 50 of the units, which this is like only a thing in the US. It's such a great way to increase the value. Is a lot of the units had laundry, like the plumbing in place for having in-suite laundry, but just the washing and machine and dryer were not there. So it's like the hookups are there, but so all you have to do is buy a machine, hook it up, and chart. And then the tenants now pay an extra $50 for having in-suite laundry. So the like ROI on that was really good. Another thing we did was added more carports. We only had about 12 like covered parking stalls, and in Houston it's hot, especially in the summer, and even now winter. Actually they got snow on Tuesday.
Oh, they
Uh,
got snow?
yeah, and I could watch it on the security cameras. So, yeah, so people want covered parking, and they're willing to pay like $30 to $40 for that. So to add another, we added another 24 stalls covered, and that cost us 22,000. But then, yeah, we're getting, well,
Was
say,
that also part of the budget, or this was something extra that you decided
kind
was as an
of
extra?
extra, yeah, that we
Mhm.
decided that it's
It'd be
it,
worth the money
it
to put it in.
just kind of did an analysis of it. For getting $40 a stall per month, like, yeah, we pay that off pretty soon, and then it just adds to our NOI. And
Mhm.
those are kind of the major things that we did. I think probably everything else was included in the original budget. I think maybe some extra things. We added security camera. That was that wasn't like a huge expense, but yeah. And let's see, had yeah, that was the main thing. The leasing office, not like that brings in a lot of income, but that's just like the first thing that people see. It makes a huge difference in trying to lease out the property. Like, it was pretty awful before.
Oh, so
And
do you think that kind of affected it when trying to find tenants, that the leasing office just didn't look as nice?
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, the exterior like curb appeal, like a lot of our traffic is just drive-by traffic. So finally when we painted the exterior and when we renovated the leasing office, it made a huge difference, the amount of people that actually just stop in and then want to stay there, because the leasing office represented what now the property looks like too. It had a little tiny kitchen in it, but we opened it up and it kind of looks like the kitchen that's in our units. And it just looks so much more inviting. Before there were two offices, and normally like they would have closed doors, so you'd walk into the leasing office, it'd be very not welcoming. You wouldn't be sure if you could bother them there in their office or not. So we actually turned one of the offices into more of a conference room, and that we can rent out. And then we put the leasing agent's desk just out in the open space. So like as soon as you could walk in, you'd see her sitting there, and it was much more welcoming.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's great. And I think this goes to also say that, like understanding where to put your money into things is so important because even as you're saying, before, even let's say the laundry, where it's like, it's not really give it like there's no purpose to it. Like it's just they're not getting the money, it's being leased out. Where it's like, what can you make the best of it? Or like you're saying that curb appeal that helps so much. Because some people, I feel like a lot of people think, oh, make a small renovation budget and don't think of like having sufficient funds to be able to properly renovate it. Or for example, like that, like you're just you have this budget that is too small that you can't even add on extra things if you need.
yeah,
That could be crucial. That could help really actually, for example, like that, bring in those tenants or even bring a better quality of tenants, like whatever it is, helping out in all these areas are so important to have like that nice budget in place. Because I feel like,
like,
especially maybe not in the buildings per se, but I feel like in the smaller residential type buildings, feel like people are always doing things in a pinch. Like it's like this tiny little budget, and then they're hitting themselves because they're not getting either the value they expected or they're not getting the quality of tenants that they want. Instead of just being like, put that money down to make sure you got like a good enough budget to actually get things done
yeah,
well.
and get it to completion too. Like that's like the worst thing that could happen is you run out of money and you're not fully complete, and especially if yeah that last little bit is what's going to actually attract people, and it doesn't. It makes a huge difference. It's all done. If it's only half done, it's not. It's not half the value. It's less than half the value, right?
Yeah.
It's valuable when it's all complete. The whole property is looks good. We resurfaced. We have a pool. We resurfaced like the pool deck to make that look better. We like cut down. We did two major tree trimming sessions. One when we first bought the property, and then a year later it just grew so much again. We had to like cut down a bunch more branches. But just doing all of those little things makes a huge difference because it doesn't look like
Mhm.
it was just so dark just for them all these trees. So yeah, so in I would say we also we had a contingency in our budget, and we use that up. But again, it's not because the things ended up costing more. We just added to the scope,
Yeah.
but it was worth
And sometimes, yeah, I was gonna say sometimes that is also the purpose. Sometimes like you realize the value, right? It's just like, is it worth it to go into that contingency fund and just put it to things that will really help out in the future? And then and then afterwards you're just rebuilding up that contingency fund anyways.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
So with that now, like, what kind of what kind of problems have you been going through now in this half of the project since we last spoke?
yeah. For this past year, like the major challenge we had this past year, like we once we got kind of the renovations going, and that was good, going well. The major challenge was leasing up the units. Like
Mhm.
in still at this time last year we were like at 60% occupancy.
Mhm.
Like our occupancy fell from like 76% from when we first purchased it, because there were so many vacancies already, and we just took those offline, we renovated them. But then we had just so many renovated units that we needed to lease up, and so it took much longer than we thought it was going to. And in the end, I think what really did it was just spending the money on marketing. So
Oh
we
yeah.
were, and it seems like a lot, but we were spending $5,000 a month. We spent just on one website on apartments.com. We did this like diamond spotlight thing, and we did that for 3 months. So $15,000 spent on marketing, which sounds like a lot, but when you're losing $40,000 to $50,000 in vacancy every month, it was worth it. We're like, we got to stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Spend the money on this marketing, and we spent some money in other websites as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what did it. We just got a ton of leads, and we got it leased up. We also offered concessions, so like 1 month free rent, and just to get it leased up, it was worth it. So, and then we kind of had to, work through those concessions and burn them off for a few months. But then by November, December of last year, we finally like could say we're stabilized at like 97% occupancy. Right now we're trending at 99%. And the best part, or the final number, that we're now talking to lenders and they're evaluating it, and we're close to 18 million.
That's
So
amazing. That's great. And actually, again, like a really good point that you're making, which I feel lots of investors also really get stuck on, is exactly what you said, that marketing. Sometimes you need to spend that money in places where you feel like it's not related to the property, but it's like, but like that, if you're bleeding or something's happening where you're just like, you need to spend the money. And sometimes people wait too long, or or because I had a friend, for example, where he was speaking about like he wanted to do the Airbnb himself and just went through it. They missed the high period because finally when they realized that they really just need someone to take care of it for them, because they just didn't like have the know-how and everything, that they could have been up and running a lot faster, but because they were trying to like do it themselves or not really, it was basically, I feel like when you're appointed that you're kind of bleeding money,
yeah,
it's like your mind stops you from wanting to spend more money. Where sometimes the solution is
to spend more.
spend that money,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Because it's
yeah. You don't
like
want.
you said, 15 grand is a lot, but you're losing, let's say 40 grand. I forget what you said, but let's say 40 grand. So it's just kind of
Yeah,
like you gotta be open. It's like you have to be open to just be like, we're having a problem. How do we solve it? And just getting it done. And I feel generally from what I hear, it's you just have to spend that money. Where it's like, yes, there was maybe it wasn't part of the plan to spend that money, but you know what? Like, what else is there to do but get those professionals in that are really better at, let's say, for example, in your case, like getting that marketing out
yeah,
than trying, right? Because it's like, especially a certain amount of time, right? It's like, okay, clearly we can't do it. It's not working. It's just sometimes like just get a professional, like people that actually know, or get that advertisement out in the places you know it will work to just get that money flowing.
yeah. And another thing we did, because we were always trying a lot of different things. That's, I think, what the key thing that helped in the end. But also just having the renovations done finally in August. Like I said,
Like
having those final.
fully done, you're saying, basically, right?
We also had a hurricane in July, so that didn't help either. And so, yeah, weather did have a pretty big factor in just, people just coming out to the, like, and also, our property didn't look so good a few weeks after that. And mostly it was just a lot of branches that fell down and a little bit of some roof damage, but so that just delayed things. But another thing we did to help with the leasing process was actually hire a leasing consultant, and she looked at the entire process and to figure out like what's not working. And it was mostly a bunch of things like, okay, we're not actually getting the leads from this website into the property management software, so we things on the leads, and like just little things, tweaks here and there helped. And I think also just having someone there, like almost putting a spotlight on the leasing agent and them, and being like, and them really trying to figure out for themselves too what they could do better. That helped well. But
Mhm. So what do you think? So you think then, so the main issues then really of why you weren't getting people coming in. One, you said it was like that the visual appeal at the beginning was probably wasn't so good. but you think the second one was basically your leasing process was not so automated or so connected. So like there's, I guess, some drops that were happening.
Yeah, there were some gaps for sure. One of the main ones was like, um, yeah, there's just a lot of little gaps in the process, like not getting back to tenants fast enough. We tried to set more like online booking calendar where people could just book a showing themselves. We kind of tried different things, but yeah, I can't pinpoint it to like the one thing, but a lot of it was just not getting enough leads.
Mhm.
With people,
Do you know at that point why there weren't enough leads coming in?
um, it's pretty.
Like, was it the market, you think? Pardon?
I think it's just the market. It's a pretty competitive market, and you know what also helped. We were just another thing we did was rebranding the whole property too. Like we changed the name, we created a new Google listing, and that took a little bit of time for people to see, right? Like it, especially when they Googled that area. So we spent some money also on Google ads to do that. We focused on getting reviews, even if it was from some of our investors, putting up there, and just to get a little bit more traction with that, our Google listing. And so that kind of helped. But I think, yeah, why we weren't getting that, it was just, we probably just weren't advertising well enough. And
Mhm. Or
had
maybe
to,
I'm curious,
yeah,
did the old listing have, for example, bad reviews? Where it was, were they
pass.
like so bad, the
Yeah.
previous one? That so maybe yeah, so it's just like that, like you said, that probably then so that probably makes a lot of sense too. It's like they look it up and they're just like they see this, maybe there's too many bad reviews, or even if there aren't too many, but like the bad ones are really bad, you know.
So it took
So
some time through all that and almost like change our brand and our online like reputation. And so on all of these different platforms, on Yelp and apartments.com, and just on Google. Yeah, so that took some time to establish because yeah, the previous reviews were pretty bad.
oh, it was pretty bad, yeah. Yeah,
But
so
now
that's good that you decided to rebrand then, because yeah, if you know if you're buying it from someone that let's say didn't take good care of it or didn't care so much, and then it is hard to like really change people's minds about it. It's like almost better, like you said, it's just rebrand and start from scratch again.
yeah, so we renamed it. We have a brand new website, and because we renamed it, then we almost kind of were starting fresh on all of these other listing websites. So yeah, that helped a lot. It wasn't something we originally planned to do, but we realized at one point that it was necessary, and we were like changing everything else about it, but it was still having that name, still had a reputation in
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah. And I like that. I think it's also, especially when it's dealing with buildings, you know, that online presence is actually important because, you know, the first thing they're going to do is you look up the address. It's going to take you to the Google reviews.
Yeah,
So you're going to be like, seeing it. And then, especially if you're renting the property out, you're going to go start reading about it and trying to learn about it online.
yeah,
So it's like, especially I think for buildings, that's a really good point actually, and a really good like learning experience because yeah, you like you said, you would never think to do that. You know, it wasn't a part of the budget, but
yeah,
it's probably again something that brought you up to get to that 99% occupancy, right? And also just to probably bring in the right kind of tenants that you would want too, I'm sure, you know, because I'm sure if people see bad reviews, you're probably losing out on good quality tenants because they're gonna read it and be like, other you get other ones that are not the ones that probably don't qualify, and they're just like, oh, whatever, you know.
yeah.
And then either you're just like, no, that's not the type of tenants that you want, you know, or it's just like, or then you're getting a tenant in there that is just, you know, making problems worse.
Yeah, and so that was a big part of it is also just cleaning up things that were there and just like evicting people that shouldn't have been let in the first place, and just kind of cleaning up because yeah, you'd have some tenants that they would just hang out right at the property. You could tell they did not have any job, and they yeah, and they kind of when you walk around and you see these people like through like it doesn't give the right impression. that you want. So yeah, a lot of cleanup, but we made sure to focus on the criteria, our leasing criteria, and making sure that our leasing staff was following that, by
Mhm.
doing on that. Yeah, it was like, it was all aspects, every kind of part of the building and everything had to be touched and changed. But in the end, a lot of work, but yeah, it's been worth it.
How has have you gone through any problems with related to now the refinancing part, or some difficulties or challenges with that?
Um, like probably just the regular challenges. We obviously we don't want them to look too much about of our historical like T12, like our trailing profit and loss, because we've, the numbers aren't that good a year from now or a year ago. Um, but certain lenders will still want to like take an average of the expenses over the last 8 to 12, and we're like, well, that's not
So they
right.
don't consider, for example, it's been in a renovation phase. They won't consider that it's like it was in the middle of renovation. So for example, like that, like you will have a low occupancy.
Yeah, like they wouldn't. You need a really good broker that is going to basically be able to tell the story to the lender and explain to them that this is why we're not using the T12. This is why we're using more of a T6 for expenses, the last 6 months of expenses. The
Mhm.
next thing is to use like a T1, like the last month of income. So that's good because income definitely increased, and we keep going up every month. So that helps. One
So
thing we're seeing is like,
people know, because you're talking about things that I don't even know. You're talking
yeah.
about a T1, a T, like a two other T's. I don't know. What are each ones for?
So the T just stands for like the trailing profit and loss. So it's basically your income and expenses, a monthly income and expenses. So, and that number is just how many months. So a T12 months, looking back 12 months of your income and expenses. And I say T1, that just means the trailing profit and loss for just 1 month. Yeah.
Okay. And then so generally when you're going, but that's not then that, okay, that's not nothing related to the taxes. That's just like your financial
That's just our
statement.
financial. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought we're talking about like, I was thinking maybe we're talking about like taxes or
Oh,
something. So then
oh,
that
it's not
for
like
them,
nothing with a T4 in Canada.
yeah. So it's like, oh, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah.
But so when it comes to a building, then yeah, I guess all they, like you said, they probably want a T12 to view the history. But
Yeah.
then, like you said, a broker would be coming in to explain why it is what it is,
Yeah.
which is very actually even with houses, it's the same thing, especially when you do a renovation and you want to get it refinanced. You're right. It's also the same, right? It's like, okay, why is this a value so much higher than what it was purchased at?
Mhm.
And then you really have to have, like, I know some people have that created like booklets showing the before and after pictures, explaining what was done, just to validate that, yes, I am deserving of this amount of money, or like the valuation that should be. Because sometimes if you don't sell it, instead of, let's say, like you said, the 18 million, they'll be like, no, no, it's worth 16 or something, because that story wasn't told. And maybe they're just like, no, you're trying to take more money than you deserve, or who knows what they're thinking. But they're always trying to obviously bring down the amount, and we're
Yeah,
trying to bring it up, right?
exactly. Yeah, and so it's all like in multifamily based on your income and expenses. And so we created a 2025 budget, and we'd ideally like them to just use that, but that's not reality. They want to look at history as well, but they are considering that. And if it's reasonable, like if we're basically there already, we're just basically expecting to have, say, a 3% increase in income over the year, or a 3% increase in taxes. That's pretty much, it's just an ongoing version of where we're at now. So hopefully they do look at that a little bit more. Yeah, there's just some, so we're still just talking to different brokers, and they have, we've found the property taxes is sure an interesting one in the US. It's much different than Canada, where you get your property tax assessment and you might, protest it, but you normally don't. Like, we've never done that here. We're just like, no, it's actually usually lower than the value of the property, like the tax assessed value.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in places like Texas, it's very normal to protest your taxes, go into mediation, sometimes a settlement, and sometimes litigation with the county, like you basically with to bring that down, that tax assessed value. And certain tax protesters that you can hire to help you through this whole process, and it was very much worth it. We brought down our tax assessed value down to 9.5 million this year.
Mhm.
And so that brings down our property tax bill, which ultimately should increase the NOI because our expenses are lower. And so we've decreased it quite a bit. And we got about a $30,000 tax refund last year, and we expect like a $40,000 refund this year.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
And so what was like, I don't know how involved you're in it, so like whatever you can share, but how, like what kind of, let's say high level tactics did they use to even be able to say, that it's worth what you guys think it's worth compared to, and then like compared to the government to what they think it's worth. Like how do you know how that went?
I think they go back to, because if the taxes are protested in the past, that helps. And so you can look at historical values, and they were kind of lower numbers, like around 9-10 million. And so they could say like, well, this is what it was in the past, and why 13 million. I don't know, but the exact process that they use or reasoning that they get it down, but just by going back and basically, um,
So it's more historical information that they go through.
yeah, yeah, they just
So they
by
don't, for example, like here
asking
in Canada,
a
pardon?
bit, just by going back and asking for a lower amount and saying like, no, we believe this is lower. They definitely, we provide some supporting materials and stuff for that. But yeah, I don't know exactly the case that they made, but that's one thing that you just hire the professional for.
Mhm.
So many intricacies with it. And usually the tax protester that we hired also had like an attorney that they work with really closely. So we've been working with them, and it sounds like I just let them do their thing because they know what they're doing, and I'm still learning a little bit of how all of this tax stuff works in the US. So, but it's good to kind of learn through the process. I don't need to know everything. I just need to hire the right person.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah. And that's all, yeah. And it's also again showing the importance of like knowing when to like hire those professionals to just get the job done right. I think that's also, I feel like one of the good things of when you're getting into buildings. I feel like when people invest in buildings, you do treat it a lot more like a business. So you're thinking about, I'm hiring this, I'm hiring that. Not like I feel like in the residential side where it's like, I'm doing it myself, I'm doing it myself. And then probably hearing horror stories of some of the people because they tried to do it themselves and they lost money or just prolonged things much longer than they needed to because of this mentality of do it yourself, where it's like if you just got those professionals in place, things probably either would have ran better, would have gotten done better, less money, whatever the case is. That's one of the things I think on the commercial side is so much better. It's that mentality is different. You're already thinking always higher.
it's impossible to do it yourself.
And that's
That's the difference.
true too.
So big project. Like even like the GP, like the management team, you can't be the only one. There's just too much to do for this size of project. Like we have people who, investor relations, capital raising, asset management. That was mine. Construction management, and underwriting, acquisitions. So like it's just impossible for one person to do all of that. So you're forced to
Yeah.
get the right And also if you are investing in a different country, also again, you have to also rely on other people. I can't be there all the time. So that's where we hire the trusted GC, and that we can rely on, and who, you know, reports back to us when they see something fishy going on the property. And so it's the team is so critical for sure.
100%, yeah. And like that, I feel like you just see the benefits a lot more. I feel like a lot of people do have that struggle. And maybe that, and obviously that's probably why there's a lot less people in the bigger multifamilies, because you really do have to shift to that business mentality. And I do think a lot of people really find that hard, you know, like to give up, to release the reins and be like, I have to control everything, and getting out of that and be allowing other people to come in, be it partners and be it professionals to come in, you know?
Yeah, it's just a mindset shift when you realize, well, it's like the who not how book. Like there's people that can do it better than you, and it's yeah, why don't just partner with those people? And because there's no way you can know it all and do it all.
100%. Any other challenges that you faced that you wanted to share with the community?
Let's see. There was so much that went with this property. What's it? Uh, we went through some property management software changes. That was a challenge. Another reason we only have a T8, not a 212. We got a bunch of information not transferred properly. But the good thing that happened though is like one partner really and has
Sorry, say that
tracked
again. Cut out.
our
It was cutting out.
one of our partners is like acting as our bookkeeper, like has the quick files, tracks everything for tax purposes, so that we are on top of our taxes, like income taxes. And so thank goodness for that, because you can't trust the property manager software necessarily. And when you go through a transition, because we went through a transition property managers, so there was one transition there, and then within that property manager we switched softwares. And so, and
What
as
made
much as you
you decide to change
what's that, why did we decide to change?
the software? Yeah.
um it's a long complicated story, but basically it was no we were the only property on that software, and the property the manager was managing portfolio. Like all of their other properties were on a different platform, and for some reason we started off with a different software, and so their like corporate office was trying to learn this new software, which was than what they were using, but just because they weren't used to it, it was causing a lot of problems. And because people in the office, they're not just managing our property, they're managing a lot of different properties, so it didn't make sense to have us on a different software. So we switched to what they were actually their other properties. And yeah, but it's as much as you plan to have this transition and everything, still there's so much in these things that it's hard to, some things just still get messed up, and you got to work through it. But now it's
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's actually very true, because I remember I've spoken to some property managers. They make it a point that they say that you're moving into our system, and they'll do that transition because, like you said, it's just you don't realize the impact of, okay, like them trying to learn a new system, and it's better just getting your property onto their system because they can do it like this.
yeah,
Whereas like now they're like, how do I add it, like the rent, and like find the unit to put the money in, or like super basic things. But when you don't know the software, it just becomes a mission and a half. So I totally understand that, because I remember talking to a property manager actually, and they're just kind of like, we only use this software and we onboard people into this software just because exactly that. So it's like don't have the time to be able to learn a new software, and they're just going to be efficient in what they know. So it's even better for you as a customer that you're doing what they know best.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It didn't make sense, especially they work in that software so much. Like it's everything goes through there, all the payment.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
so
They just have their processes built through that. So it's also easier because they have their automated processes. And so it's just like, for them, it's just so procedural where it's like almost you're going into a new system. They're having to recreate at least parts of it. I'm sure the basic of it is the same, but you are really recreating new processes.
yeah, you are. And and I was doing a lot of it, but still, like, and they were tried to dedicate one person in the office to like learn that one new one, and she was younger and like she was getting it, but it's just the rest of the team, they still needed to know it. There's still like, the accounting department that has to deal with it, and they couldn't get a proper budget in there ever, so
Mhm.
not worth it. Just switch again. Like only 4 months prior or 5 months before that we had switched from another software. And like, because every time you do it, like these softwares are integrated with the like kind of the portal that the residents use, so every time you switch it, like they have to create a new like account with a new portal, and like that whole thing, that how they pay rent changes a little bit. And so and you have to make sure that their ledger, like how much they owe and doesn't change, all that gets transferred. So there was actually a problem the first time we transferred from the two different property managers, and we really didn't want to do it again, but we had to, and now it's good. We haven't had to change for 8 months now.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. I feel like that's also sometimes a hard part is trying to find a good property manager. Because I think it's just, I don't know, they never take it as seriously as you would like them to, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah,
Or not at all. Sometimes them don't even care at all.
yeah. And in the US, you can have really, really big firms that are managing thousands and thousands of units. But when you think, and even like the lenders, they have the impression that those are the best property managers, but they're not. Like their focus, at least this with only focus, was getting more management. They did not care if that property just fell apart. And yeah. So
Yeah.
we,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you would think that they have that because they have more units that they would come with a reputation of doing a lot better. But yeah, I think that's like the due diligence on just property managers. I feel like it's something that always needs to be done. No, it's like and done at like at a level that is just like you need to know inside and out everything because same thing, like you just turn to a disaster if you just don't have that right person there taking care of everything.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like in the US, it's kind of those like medium sized firms that are better. That, yeah, that they don't have too many. This one has probably like 64 properties that they manage, but like some of them could be several hundred units, but
Mhm.
still, it's, yeah. And the other big difference is like, um, there's sort of have an incentive, like the owner is like a partner in the deal as well, so they are kind of treating it a little bit more like their own. So that,
Yeah. Yeah, that is something sometimes it's a good point. Sometimes it's that you have to, those important key people, sometimes you do need to bring them in to just make sure that things go well for the project because, yeah, it's just, I don't know why. I think that must be like universal or something. I feel like property managers is just like the hardest thing to find anywhere. I feel like same thing. I hear so many horror stories over here of just like property managers that don't care or who knows what problems they put themselves into, but then they start like kind of trying to hide all their mistakes and then sooner or later you're just like you're much worse off
yeah,
than than you should have been or like you just shouldn't even have got there.
yes,
Yeah,
especially
that,
service property manager, right there, they're collecting the rent and they're paying all the expenses, and you have everything. When you're the one doing it, it's if you know what's going on. But yeah, I think we've had a theme this whole call. It's all about the people, right? It's like the management team, and to like the people you hire. It's
Mhm.
all multifamily is about the numbers and but the location, like that matters too. But like what actually 100% why this project was successful is the people we had involved, like from all
Mhm.
and like the one key aspect was our like the one partner who helped guarantee the loan, like an American partner, and who has also acted very much like a mentor and just a really, he's been in the business since 1997. So knows a thing or two. And that was a key person in the deal as well. So
Mhm.
every person
Mhm.
was,
Which is actually very important that you say that, because if you are new to getting into multifamilies, especially those bigger ones, I say don't shy away from it, because you can do big things. But like you said, that team is so important, and making sure you have someone specifically, like you said, that is experienced in that area, that understands it inside and out, so that, because I'm sure that he was there to really give like ideas to making it happen, right? And
and
making sure to push things forward, saying like what should or shouldn't happen. Because like you said, he has the experience, or at least he's been at that level that maybe even if it was something new for him, he would probably notice it and figure out a solution better than the newer people on it, just because of by experience, even if it were a new situation for him too.
oh yeah, exactly. Like, and just knowing how things should be, just he can just see what's not working well, what's not right with how the operations is going, or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. They have like that intuition, it's just because like they've done so many.
that experience.
It's like you don't even see it, and they're like something fishy is happening. And you're like, what? And they're like, I don't know, I just feel it. And you're just like, look into this, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, that is an issue. We need to fix it up. Like it's just like that experience is so important, and it's like that's why I say like I feel like for people that have never gone into multifamilies, definitely go into them. It's very lucrative, but definitely, like you said, that team is very
Mhm.
important, the action takers, but then also having that person that can really guide you, that has that experience, that can just really push you forward.
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
like how do you find that team? Because that's like that's tricky, and some of it I would say was luck of how this all came together and how we got those right people, that team. Um, but it was because like yeah, oh, it was
But I think
still
it's also by experience, because at least I think
experience.
majority of you guys also had some level of real estate experience, right? In
Yeah,
it to at least also be able to know, maybe not know at that level, because probably for most of you on the team it was pretty new, but just I feel like even knowing how to be a real estate investor, or understanding like the difficulties that come with it, they're just like bigger number difficulties, but it's just like you also in yourself, I feel like have experienced things where it's like you understand, like the importance of like that, the team dynamic, that it needs to be there, understanding like how to hone each other's like skills, so that it's like everyone's doing things the best they can, and not like dragging their feet because they hate where they put themselves in.
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, it was all experience too. Like whoever was part of the project initially, that experience, I guess, in some ways attracted the right other team members.
Mhm.
And even though it seemed like a fluke that this person got involved, but no, it was definitely some experience and relationships there. And I'd say if someone is wondering how to start building that team, like you definitely need to be um, in some sort of community of other multifamily investors. And sometimes you need to be part of those communities most of the time.
Agreed.
So
Yeah, I think that's probably what helped you, was because you were a part of a few communities, even just in just chatting. Like not every single person you're going to talk to is going to be a partner, but you start like learning characteristics or behaviors and things like that, and you will naturally like gravitate to the ones that like mesh well with you. And that's
yeah,
probably, to be honest, what happened. Like you may think it's luck, but you guys all like happened to just have the same mission, the same thing, and it just came together organically. But I feel like again, those things don't happen unless if you're out there talking to lots of people, getting to know a lot of people, seeing what challenges they're going through. Like those communications are so important. Be like, how are your projects going? What's going on? You know, and just getting to know them, or even sometimes you hire them for your own personal projects and you think like, oh, you know, I really like the way they work. Maybe in the future, all of a sudden it comes up like you either hire them or they become a partner. Like I feel like all that really communication, that community building is so impactful
Yeah,
to be able to just kind of like bring together people that seem luck, but it's just like it's
it,
like the right mission was in place for it to come together and bring the right people together.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can start off by like if someone's say looking to do this in the US, like just going to conferences in the US, that's the first place to start. Then you can learn a little bit the lay of the land. Who are the educators in this space? What are these communities that are out there? Because a lot of the times they will be at these conferences, and that's like kind of just where like the meeting place of everybody. And there's in the US there's so many different ones, like a lot less in Canada, um, but there's some main ones you could go to, and especially if it's in like the market that you're thinking if you're going to invest in. I think that was one of the ways that we got initially connected with that property manager, was just talking to other people in that market, and they said, "Oh, you're investing in Texas. You should talk to this person," and then just there.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the good thing of sharing your idea, because you never know who you'll talk to that will be like, hey, I know this person, go talk to them. Oh, you should talk to this person because they know this too. Like it's important to do that communication and be in those communities, because you don't know how that link will happen.
Yeah, and in the end, it's quite a small world once you get into it.
It is.
Um,
Yeah, you start knowing who the really active people are, right? Who are the really active people? You start getting to know it, and you feel like almost you start seeing the same people again and again, and you're like, okay, you guys are the action takers, you know?
yeah, you figure out who those people are. They've probably got a huge network of people. They can connect you to others, and you're right. It's all about getting out there, telling people what you're trying to do, and pretty easy. You could probably get connected with the right person,
Mhm.
and then take
This was awesome. So you're
one
gonna
last
say?
thing, and then you get connected with the right potential partners. Take the time to get to know those people, and don't rush to partnership.
100%. Yeah, complete. Great point. Because I do feel like sometimes people get stuck in the FOMO and it's just like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And it's just like the best partnerships is exactly what you said. Just take that time, get to know them, make sure that it is going to work out. Because sometimes they may be amazing people, but the goals are not the same goals. The values could not be the same values. You just don't know. It's like you want to make sure that it's like, yes, like, are we going to be amazing together or are we amazing separately, you know?
Yeah, so critical because like I say, anyone new investor, yeah, it's like a marriage. So you gotta date first before you get married.
100%. Zorya, thanks so much for coming on. I think this was great, valuable information. It was so good to hear about getting your updates on your project and just to learn from your experience. And if you guys love what you heard from Zorya, she is going to be tagged on here, so you'll be able to follow her, see what she's up to. You can DM her. You can check out her profile on REFAM. And if you love what you hear from me too, same thing, follow me, check me out on REFAM too. Zorya, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
See
See
everyone in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Bye, Zorya.
you, Diana.